What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty diamond-handed co-host Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how you doing today, man?
To the moon, baby. Space Force. That's what it's there for.
Oh man, what a week! If you follow the stock market or even just are like tuned into culture at all, you probably heard about Wall Street bets, the Reddit thread turned common man brokerage that threatened to take down Wall Street this past week. Dave, what was your just overall experience with this whole Wall Street bets thing?
Gotta say, I was very unproductive this last week. Looking at my phone a lot. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, apart from like any stock gains that might have been made, I think the best part about it was just the memes, because the memes there were some really like successful ones, particularly from like 300 and Braveheart. I kept seeing it's really funny stuff.
Yeah, no, the memes were great. And just like how many people were getting in on this. Eh, I don't know. It's kind of amazing. Like at one point, pretty much like just the meme culture of it all was able to push a like pretty much a fake crypto
Yes,
Dogecoin,
Dogecoin.
uh, like by
Lost seven
five
dollars on
times.
Dogecoin.
Like pushed it five times what it was going for at the time. Just
Yes, it got up to
amazing.
like 8 cents, 7 cents, whatever it was. Now it's like at 3 cents again.
Well, we're not here to give you financial tips.
Not
We are,
financial advisors.
yes, we are not financial advisors, but you know who will might be playing a fake one is Noah Centineo,
Yeah.
who's been linked to an untitled film about the whole Wall Street chaos surrounding GameStop and AMC stock. This is already picked up by Netflix. This book by Marco Bowl that's not even written yet.
No, so you're actually combining the two. So Mark Bull is the screenwriter behind Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, Detroit Triple Frontier.
He's okay.
He's just developing a movie for Netflix. MGM optioned Ben Mesrich's book about this story, which is not yet written. And Ben Mesrich wrote the book about the MIT card counters that became 21, and also wrote about Facebook's origins that became the social network. So you have these two
Hmm.
projects, Netflix and MGM, as of
You're right.
right now.
Pretty insane that even before all this had even really concluded, we got these two projects. Um, any thoughts around just this becoming a movie, TV show, book, whatever it's going to become?
Well, I'm not surprised that Hollywood has acted as fast as they have, because they actually do
Mhm.
this for everything. It's just not usually as high profile, current event, right? Like books get optioned before they're written, or certainly as soon as they're hits. That's nothing new at all. And even like long feature stories in like the New Yorker get optioned right away. If it's like this like revelation of a new story, like the McDonald's scam that got
Mm.
optioned right away when that story was written. Stuff like that. It's pretty
Make
common.
millions.
Yeah. So um in this instance, I think it's funny that they immediately like settled on Noah Centineo. Like kind of awfully fast to cast, in my opinion,
Mhm.
especially when you don't really have your script yet. I wonder if they have a specific figure in mind, maybe like that roaring kitty streamer voice who's behind a lot of the Wall Street bets action. Maybe he'll be a composite character. I don't know, but you can definitely see him like fulfilling that like trader bro, Reddit bro stereotype that
Mhm.
they'll probably go for with him. I have to imagine that this will be very much within his lane, whatever character they come up with for him.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, right? Because obviously this is all in the very beginning stages of conceptualization, but you have to imagine that they're going to be portraying people behind the keyboard who are leading this and people who are on Wall Street and their reaction to it. I'm interested to see in which lane they put Noah Centineo by the time this gets
Sure.
out sometime next year. I'm sure we'll start hearing more people link to it. I mean, it also just feels like Netflix was like, who do we have a good relationship with that a lot of our younger fans like? And they were like, Noah Centineo. It's like not a very inspired choice in my opinion, but hey, I mean, if it works, it works, and they know
Yeah.
more than I do in terms of the
Good for his
algorithm.
agent, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you think about movies like The Big Short, uh, even 21, but like anything populist like this, right? Like sticking it to the man, and that was the big refrain with the memes, and especially the controversy that happened on Thursday with all the brokerages. But I could see that, like, you can kind of see how they would like write this movie. I wonder if they would focus just on one side of it. Though. Like Big Short, more or less, was people in the game within the financial system, right? And this GameStop story, Wall Street Bets, this is largely the common man. At least that's what they'll focus on. Obviously, there were professional investors on both sides of this, but uh, if we got the professional side of things, I would. Everyone's been saying this. I'd love to see a spoof of this of some kind happen on Industry Season 2 with HBO, just because that would
Mhm.
be, in a investment bank and seeing
Yeah.
these. I would love to hear their British jokes about their thoughts on these Reddit investors. I feel like that would kind of weave perfectly in as like a 2 or 3 episode arc if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, that would be actually be really great. Yeah, I'm just interested to see how this affects these sorts of shows. Also, if you are tuned in to all this stuff and you want to just drop us a line of like what the next stock that's going to do this is, like, hey, let us know. Like, we're ready to take the man down with you. So, our DMs are open at Nowstalgia Pod. Dave, any last thoughts on Wall Street Bets before we
Diamond
move on?
hands, baby.
Diamond hands. Sophie. Moving from some goofy news to some pretty unfortunate news this past weekend. Pretty shocking. Announced that and I saw it through Pitchfork first, which is actually pretty interesting to see the way that they posted it. But
Mhm.
Sophie tragically died. The music producer, creator, singer. Um, the way Pitchfork I think tweeted it was something along the lines of like Sophie has died or something like, and people were just like, wait, what? Like it
Mhm.
was like no pretext to it, just kind of like this happened. Reports have come out that she had gone on top of her roof to try to take a picture of the
Yeah,
full moon,
just an
slipped,
accident.
fell,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was just accidental. And it's pretty tragic because Sophie, while not having a huge you know uh, musical output in terms of her own albums and singles, she does have quite a bit of music, but not, I'd say, large output. Really making her first album in 2017, um, has just really had a huge impact on the shape of pop music,
Mhm.
and the direction it went in the second half of the 2010s. Um, just what are your just first general thoughts about Sophie and this obviously tragic passing?
Yeah, I mean, well, the nature of the passing, she was what, only 31, was
Hmm.
it? 34. The nature of the passing reminds me a lot of like Anton Yelkin, like just a freak
Hmm.
accident, just incredibly tragic, and
Wow.
just
Okay.
sad. But I mean, I never really done the full dive on her personal music, her solo music, but I was very familiar with her as a producer. As a name I feel like you
Yeah.
would see all the time, just as someone who was thought of in high esteem, even if she didn't end up having credits. It seemed like she was just often at like studio sessions for
Hmm.
a wide array of artists. But obviously, I think the main like mainstream person she was most associated with would be Charlie XCX, particularly a few projects back. Once Charlie really started to take off around Pop Two. Um, and actually, one of my favorite song on Pop Two is co-produced, co-written by her, Out of My Head. And then even like you'd see her kind of pop up once in a while, like Big Fish Theory, right?
Hmm.
Definitely a uh, shall we say, departure at that point for in sound for Vince Staples. One of those songs, one of the most eclectic electronic sounding songs. Yeah, right. Produced by Sophie, and you just when news came out she passed, the wide array of people in the music industry that were struck with grief and sharing how much esteem they had for her is pretty evident.
Yeah, it's obviously incredibly tragic, but I think as you think about uh, Sophie's legacy, and you mentioned Charlie XCX, who is a uh, steadfast pop star at this point, maybe one of the most revered pop artists critically, at least.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine Charlie being at the point she's at without Sophie's influence. And
He's a lot of Charlie credits, a ton.
and it's just kind of insane to think about all the pop output we've got, and that's gone in this direction. And you think about like someone like Gex, who
Hmm.
has grown on me, and I know that you stand pretty hard.
Super
It's
pop.
pretty hard to think about them being who they are without someone like Sophie. So, just a huge loss because an innovator in this field, and describing her sound is just like almost impossible. You listen to a wide array of her songs. Immaterial, is such a different song from It's
Hmm.
Okay to Cry, but both are just so unique and yeah, one of a kind. So huge loss, rip to Sophie. Why don't we jump into a new creator though, someone that's has gotten quite a bit of acclaim, dropping their first album. Arlo Parks collapsed in Sunbeams. Arlo Parks really came on the scene end of 2018 with her single Cola,
Hmm.
which got a ton of attention. Haley Williams wanted to bring her on a solo tour, and I think she got some shout outs from like Michelle Obama and
Hmm.
people like that.
Phoebe Bridgers as well.
Yeah, I mean, you get that Bridgers cosign, it's a good sign. Glass Animals was doing a lot of collaborating with her, so there's a lot of talk around this first album from Arlo Parks. Did you feel like this lived up to the hype of Parks at this point?
Yeah, so I really went into this completely blind. I was not in or on top of that 2018 breakout. I feel like rising UK uh, young female singers. I was probably more focused on someone like Georgia Smith, I guess, at that point. But
Hmm.
yeah, really wasn't aware of this, despite all the cosigns, all the mainstream attention. And well, I think her voice is good. It's like it's gentle yet still pretty engaging. Like I like the way she sings. I found Collapse and Sunbeams kind of samey throughout. I think it sounds good. It's really easy to listen to, but I don't think I was super wowed. But I don't know. I'm curious what like people that were really anticipating this would have felt, because that's
Yeah,
obviously wasn't me.
yeah. It's interesting to like look and listen through this album and try to understand exactly what she was going for, right? Because if you really tune into the lyrics, it's kind of dense in the sense that it's hard to kind of find a common thread that pulls it all together. I think if anything, like you said, the sameness of the sound and the monotony of it almost kind of ties it together. It really does. I think the name of the album describes the sound really well. It's kind of like this washed out like pop jazz acoustic mix.
Mhm.
A lot of acoustic guitars kind of leading the way with some layered like synths and distorted basses at times. Sometimes you get a distorted guitar solo. The drums are pretty standard like drum kits, but they're snappy. They really like come to the forefront of the sound, and her voice comes through super clear. Like I think there's some really nice production on the album,
Mhm.
but in the end, like I'm not sure exactly what she's going for in terms of like all the people who are mentioned on this, and I actually feel like she benefits most when she's maybe not trying to drop so many like names, and is more so going for like the catchiness of her verses, because I think sometimes she on some of these songs she puts some lines that just really catch you, and if
Mhm.
she was building more off like things like the chorus on Hurt, like I think that's just a really well written and catchy line. I think this album would have caught me a little bit more. It's still a really pleasant listen, but similar to our Zane review, I kind of feel like this is the sort of thing you might just put on the background and maybe not totally
Yeah.
like who is this? And that concerns me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Hurt. I enjoyed Hurt. That has those standard sounding snares, but I still really like that drum line. That I think
Mm,
that's the one that comes together the most. I also liked Hope as well, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a wide open lane in like singer songwriter music and combining that with like R&B. And I think Arlo Parks has a lot of room to grow as evidence on this, but this is definitely a good foundation.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I, the thing is, the talent seems pretty undeniable. Like for a first album, I think this is a strong showing. But are we grading on a curve here? I don't know. I think we're going to expect a little bit more, and especially when she has this many cosigns, you have to imagine people are going to be collaborating and helping her
Yeah.
refine the sound. So, looking forward to that next project. We'll probably be adding her to the Nostalgia Best of 2021 playlist. So check that out on Spotify. Maybe we'll tweet that out on social media.
Linked in the
Uh,
episode description wherever you're watching or listening.
Check it out. We're gonna jump to HBO Max now because we got a movie. I think we both were anticipating. It was on my letterboxed wanting to watch my watch list, and we finally got The Little Things from uh, from John Lee Hancock. Sorry,
Yes.
had a brain fart
Hollywood
there.
vet.
And with an all-star cast, three leading men that uh, are very well acclaimed. I think they've all won an Academy Award. If
That's
I'm
correct.
thinking, Leto
Yeah.
won it for Dallas Buyers Club, right? Yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
Rami
So
Bohemian Rhapsody, Denzel for
Training Day,
Malcolm X and Glory, or is it Training Day and Glory? Yes,
Training
two
Day
or
and Glory.
yeah.
Um, pretty excited going into this, and then I watched the movie. And Dave, did this live up to your expectations for the movie?
Well, my expectations factored in that this movie came out at the end of January, and that usually precludes a, shall we say, lowered expectation, unless if it's being pegged as an awards film. But no, this was a new 2021 film. This was not vying for Oscars, even though it is technically eligible. And you learn more about the little things. You find out that John Lee Hancock actually wrote this script in 1993.
Yeah.
Movie set in the 90s. I did actually like that touch. There's no cell phones and cameras as a result, and no GPS. I like how that grounded us in LA in the 90s. Yet it's a it doesn't come together. It's a dated thriller, and even though it was allegedly written before Seven, man, does it feel like a ripoff of Seven. I think that's a pretty common refrain at this point about the little things, but there's a lot of obvious comparisons, and uh, John Lee Hancock doesn't attempt to like be as stylistic and intentional with his decisions when he makes movies the way someone like David Fincher is. So it's a pretty stark comparison when you think about those similarities. So yeah, Little
Yeah,
Things is it's tough. It's not like trash, but like it doesn't come together.
that's I think that's an important point to make, is that it's getting a lot of hate online from what I've seen. It's only at 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the thing is, I think this movie is pretty entertaining. I think there's some serious pacing issues with it. Like, you really go from like some interesting things happening to like long stretches of pretty dull, inactive scenes. And you talk about all the similarities from to Seven. Older black cop, younger whippersnapper cop who's new school, and like the prodigy. You have like the weirdo serial killer, quote unquote. I think the framing, the lighting, especially the way that they show like the dead bodies in this movie is very reminiscent of Seven in some ways to me. But I think where this movie really lacked for me was Rami Malek, um, which is really tough to say because if you go back and listen to any of our reviews about Mr. Robot, um, we think he's a very talented guy, but I just did not buy him in this role as like the young suave boy genius detective.
Right.
I think Denzel's just doing Denzel, which is exactly what I expected and wanted, and Leto's being weird. I mean, I almost feel like, and I want to hear what you think about this. Would this movie have benefited if Leto and Malik had switched roles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'd be worse. I think you think about the strengths of the two,
Mhm,
and I think we actually might see a twist on that thought in No Time to Die, where Rami Malek's the
mhm,
villain to James Bond. And I mean, we think about Rami as a performer. He's more neurotic, and
yeah,
him doing that when he's like pursing his lips, doing his all his ticks, just doesn't fit the like LA detective role at
no,
all.
not at
And
all.
Leto, yeah, Leto definitely sticks to being strange, being weird, but we've also seen him be a little more of a straight man. So I
Mhm.
think that would definitely have helped the movie at least a little bit.
Yeah, I just think about Leto like more buttoned up, kind of playing that like suave character, and I think he just
Right.
could have played that up more. Whereas
Yeah,
like
he's
I
like a conventionally handsome man when he chooses to dress nice too. So yeah, I think that actually could fit.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of left the movie feeling like, huh. I think this just was miscast strangely within the three, not even like somewhat different. Just they could have made it better with the
Yeah.
three. But um, any scenes or any moments from the movie that stood out to you or you really
Mm,
liked?
I don't know. Like as you say, it's like it's quite drawn out. Like it takes so long for the shooter drop with Denzel's character,
Mm,
and it's like you have a feeling there's more going on with this cop at the end, detective at the end of this rope, and then like when it finally happens, when you finally learn, it's like kind of anticlimactic and dull because I think you either figure it out at that point or it's not actually that like revelatory of a new piece of information for the audience, so it doesn't really land all that well.
mm,
And then meanwhile, what happens with Rami at the end? The build up, like it's supposed to be like the pinnacle of the thriller. This is going for like a noir thriller kind of vibe, and if you're not immediately stuck on similarities to Seven, then I also feel like the results again a little anticlimactic. So yeah, I
yeah,
think if this script, I you can tell they were just kind of sitting on this one for a long time.
yeah. I agree. I think when I think about the scenes that really stood out to me from this movie, it was just I think a lot of the Denzel being Denzel, like the first crime scene that he really goes to, where the woman's been stabbed, and he finds the room across the way that the killer was probably watching her from. I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, I did like the scene where um, Leto was in the green car parked on the side of the highway, and they kept like going around and
Yeah.
around. How's the trunk space? Just a incredibly weird line reading. And
Yeah.
then I also think like the interrogation scene was pretty good. Like there's some moments that stood out,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
it's a lot of like nothingness in between, which is a little
Yeah.
disappointing.
I think my favorite part about the little things is Leto's like character when he would do like the point, like the way he
Mhm.
would like hold his hand as he would point at Denzel. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that was good. I like this touch.
Yeah, I love the way Leto walked as that character with his feet pretty much like all the way out to like the side. It was like such a weird choice, but I was like, this is very Leto. I like that he's going for it here. Um, yeah, I mean, definitely not in the Denzel pantheon, not in any of their pantheon, I'd say. So,
No, if anything,
unfortunate.
it's another example of like a late period Denzel where he just brings a high floor
Mhm.
to a movie by the nature of his performance. But as you look at a lot of other late period Denzel movies, that only goes so far. Sometimes the movie is still bad, and that's what we got.
Not that it really matters because the movie wasn't great, but do you think Leto was the serial killer?
Oh God,
Well, unanswerable question, but
yeah, no idea. Honestly, I don't think the movie, as you said, is paced well enough to really actually have that like be sitting with you. Like I don't think anyone finishes the movie and still is like, I need to know. Like I don't think anyone
yeah.
cares that much.
There's a really interesting moment in the movie, which maybe I'm it's supposed to be linked to something else, but I think it's like near the beginning, and Denzel goes to like the cop breakfast place, and someone's like, "Hey, nice shoes." And when they said that, it really made me think because in the beginning, in that opening scene where the serial killer like chases down that girl, but you never see who it is. They like really linger on the guy's shoes. So I was like, are we supposed to
Oh.
believe that Denzel is actually this murderer? but there's no, but and he's haunting it like it, I don't know. The whole thing was very like mind fucking to me. I don't know what was going on. So probably shouldn't spend as much energy thinking
Nah,
about it as I did.
that's enough.
So why don't we move on to another movie, Palmer, on Apple Plus, the Fisher Stevens project. And Fisher Stevens, interesting because
Yeah,
he's won quite a few awards for documentary movies, but hasn't really gotten much buzz for scripted work. I guess like
yeah. I think of him as an actor. He's
yeah.
on Succession right now. He's in a million things.
So interesting to see him helming this project, and the project starring Justin Timberlake. I think a
Hmm.
person who has had some very good movies that he's been in. I don't know if I'd say good because of him, but good movies he's been in, and some movies that maybe aren't so good that he's been in, and a major part of them not being so good in my opinion. So my expectations going into this were, let's see, because it's getting quite a bit of decent buzz. And Palmer is a nice little story about a former star athlete who in college gets injured, ends up getting into trouble, going to jail for 12 years, and basically him returning back to his home community and getting his life restarted when um, he the care of this little boy, this flamboyant little boy, kind of falls to him for a
Mm.
while. And uh, really interesting. Uh, I think it's a really interesting choice to make the little boy in this, flamboyant. Um, it likes things that girls traditionally like, and um, I found this movie really delightful. To be completely honest, I thought it was like a really nice watch. I really just walked away feeling like Ryder Allen, who played Sam, the little boy, is just like gonna be a star. He just feels like he really captured the movie for me. Um, but how did you feel about Palmer?
Yeah, I'm not as warm on it. Like, I think it's perfectly fine film. Like, it's solid. I think the issue with it is though, and this movie was on the blacklist in 2016. I wonder if that's kind of how it eventually got to Fisher Stevens. Like, this was kind of a movie they were trying to keep. The industry was waiting for a way to make it. Figure out people to attach to it, and I think the simplicity of it all could have been helped better if there was a stronger central performance. If you like really cared about what's his name, Eddie, Timberlake's character, if you really cared about that because the performance was so strong, I think that could have carried the film. And I think Timberlake's good in this. Like, he's solid. He's a solid actor, but he's not good enough to like bring the movie up. And I think the way it needed to like transcend beyond just being solid. So it's all right.
You know, I think that that's a good point, but I actually walked away from this movie feeling like this might be Timberlake's best performance. I
Interesting.
mean, I think the part he's best known for is obviously as Sean Parker in The Social Network,
Yes.
but it's he has a couple of scenes. It's not like a role that you nominate him for best actor for. He's not the primary lead, and in this being the lead, I think he carries this emotional heft fairly well. And the only thing I think I felt pretty frustrated with was um, the choices Eddie kept making, even though he really wanted to make good choices, like basically kidnapping Sam. Um, didn't make much sense, especially when he has a friend who's a cop. He pretty easily could have just like explained what was going on and brought the kid to see the cop friend. And so there were some, for me, I think it was more like some script choices that were a little like confusing or frustrating. But I thought Timberlake was serviceable. And again, I go back to the performance of Sam by Ryder Allen. I just found that kid super fun and magnetic, and definitely the
Yeah.
best part for me. As
Yeah.
well as June Squibb was pretty good too, in my opinion.
Yeah. Just like in Palm Springs, showing back up just for a little bit. Good from her.
I gotta say, she died way too early in this movie. It's like
Yeah.
20 minutes in, and it's like, oh, goddamn, June Squibb's back out. um, any like moments or things you want to shout out?
uh, no, I don't think so. Like, I think like it does a good job of making you care for Eddie, care for Sam, want them to succeed. And I think the beats again, they're pretty predictable, but like it's a feel good movie.
Yeah.
Like I think I was thinking about it, like we're set in the Louisiana, I believe it is, but
Mhm.
like we don't really dwell on like the fact that we're in like a rural setting all that much. Like I was thinking of like Hillbilly Elegy, for example, where that was a big part of the movie, and there's some similar things going on with like domestic issues in that, but like and drug abuse, but like Palmer seemed to kind of just like be on the surface of a lot of things. Even like with Sam, right? Like Sam, he's too young to know really who he is and what he likes and doesn't like yet. Like, he just being himself. And like the movie just kind of goes with that. And I think that that's handled pretty well. But I think the way the script is, where it's kind of down the middle with everything, if we had like a kind of like a more world class actor, it could have been a more special movie, or at least like a better like star vehicle movie at least.
Mhm.
But well, we got it's still solid.
Yeah, definitely solid. Juno Temple, who plays Sam's mom, Shelly, is in Ted Lasso, where she plays like the exact opposite character, very like buttoned up and like always like to the 10th degree. So seeing her, and especially when she first returns after leaving Sam with Eddie for a while, she looked horrifying in that scene, which
Yes.
shout out to the makeup department for kind of think instilling that like dread with her return in a really
Hmm.
interesting way. I thought she was great, and I'd like to see her in more things. I mean, she's had some side roles, but I found her just to be really convincing as a drug addict, almost like too convincing. So,
Right.
uh, I think shouts to her. But other than that, yeah, think this is a nice like family movie to watch.
Do you have a favorite Timberlake acting performance? Is it Social Network? It's definitely his most consequential performance, and I think the the one I like the most. But I think there's a few other contenders.
Yeah, I would probably say the "Cry Me a River" music video is my favorite Timberlake performance. Actually, uh, give me that Scarlet ScarJo and JT back and forth all day. What about you though? What are yours?
Yeah, I mean, he has that small moment in Inside Llewyn Davis, which I appreciate, just like
Oh,
Adam
that's
Driver has
right.
that tiny moment, as like side musician characters. But for me, I actually love Friends with Benefits, his rom
Yeah.
com with Mila Kunis, which was a
Ooh,
great example of Hollywood making the same movie twice at
better
the
than
same
just
time.
friends.
Yeah, the No Strings
Oh, no
Attached
strings
film,
attached. That's
Natalie
right.
Portman, Ashton Kutcher, which came out first, and then Friends with Benefits comes out later, and it's even better. Like Olympus Has Fallen, White House Down, Armageddon, Deep Impact. This happens from
Mhm.
time to time. That's one of my favorite examples. So I think Timberlake and Kunis are both great in that. Um, Also, did you ever see in 2011 In Time, his movie with Amanda Seyfried?
I was actually about to say I didn't mind in time.
I
Like,
liked it at the time. I know it's
yeah.
like not well liked or anything, and maybe it doesn't hold up at all. But I remember liking it when I saw it.
I remember I was like, yeah, Justin Timberlake, he's going places, this guy, and then didn't really go places. So, shout out to JT though. This is a solid performance by him. And now let's jump to Netflix though. So we're jumping around the streaming services here, people.
Right.
We're gonna talk The Dig, the Simon Stone movie. He hasn't really made a lot of feature films.
Theater director
Yeah,
primarily.
yeah, he made The Daughter back in 2015, but this is really the first like big movie he's made since then. Starring Carey Mulligan, Ray Fiennes, Lily Allen. Pretty stacked cast. Dave,
Hey, Lily Allen,
did I just say Lily Allen?
Lily James.
Lily James,
Who's
jeez,
Lily
Lily
Allen?
Allen. She was a singer from like the 2000s. Oh God,
You didn't even say
uh,
Lily Collins.
oh God. Um, sorry. So yeah, sorry, Lily James. Dave, break us down this movie a little bit. What's like the plot, the driving force here?
Yeah. Yeah. It's we're on the eve of World War II, like really breaking out, 1939 in Suffolk, England, which is like east towards the coast from London and Cambridge, like the lower east part of London,
Mhm.
by France. And Carrie Mulligan plays a landed wealthy widow, and on her large estate are these mounds in the field, and she's wanted to get them excavated and looked into. Maybe there's cool things to find in there. And she gets Ray Fiennes' character, Basil Brown, who's a archaeologist, excuse me,
Mhm.
slash excavator, to go digging, go find stuff out. And sure enough, they find a Anglo-Saxon burial ship, which this is based on a true story called the Sutton Hoo find.
Mhm.
And then from there, we kind of get the push pull of who gets to control the dig, as well as whether they can pull this off as World War II is about to break out and priorities change and side characters come in and out of the film. But it's kind of like a sweeping period film, in the English countryside. It definitely looks the part. Get two really good actors at the top, at least. And yeah, this was a movie. This came out on Netflix. I really didn't know much about it. I just knew it was coming out, and I was like, oh, I'll watch Carrie Mulligan again. She was really good and promising young woman. Why not? She's always good,
Yeah.
and she was good in this. I kind of wish we got more of her.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I would really knock this movie for is I feel like it's a lot of Ray Fiennes when I kind of want to just more of all the other characters. And the movie also kind of changes up in a way,
Yeah,
like, and becomes like a kind of a different movie. And it's funny because I unfortunately wasn't able to watch this in one fell swoop, and I kind of like stopped it right before the change. So when I started watching it, I was
it
like, "Did
is.
I
It
miss
is
something?"
stark.
Yeah. And really, it's when Lily James's character comes in
Hmm.
as part of like the expanded excavation
Yeah,
efforts, and
from
they say in
British
the
Museum
movie,
takes over the dig, and more people
yes,
come into the fold.
thank you, and they say they bring on Peggy, Lily's character, because she's light, so she's not going to fall through, which is funny because then she does end up falling through at one point, but uh, it's just interesting because Peggy Pigot was like a pretty well established archaeologist by this point, so like to like bring her on for that reason and not just be like, yeah, we're bringing her on because she's great, just feels like such a strange choice. And then they pretty quickly just make her like this like romantic sex object within the movie,
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay.
she tends to be doing this role a lot, doesn't she?
Yeah, and it doesn't like I think I'm not necessarily knocking Lily James for it, but I'm wondering more like why they felt like they needed to frame the character in this
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, no, absolutely. Because as you said, the second half of the film, right, as the dig is about to bear fruit, which is like they actually find like the treasure that was buried with this Anglo-Saxon king. And I was reading a blog post put out by the British Museum talking about the movie, and they're very happy with this. And I think some of the people from the museum visited the set, and people from the movie went to the museum and looked at the artifacts and stuff. So it seems to be pretty period detail, releasing the broad strokes. Obviously, there's dramatic license, but the museum was saying that it's kind of interesting that the way they changed that focus. And I think Lily James' character kind of showing up, and as you said, becoming this romantic figure. We get this whole romantic side plot with Carrie Mulligan's character's cousin, played by Johnny Flynn, and then you get this like moment of conflict when a train RAF training pilot crashes in his plane into the channel or whatever, and it's like, what was this? I thought we were in this like cerebral archaeology movie with Carey Mulligan and Ray Fiennes. What is all this for?
Yeah.
It just really like threw me for a loop. Not that I thought it was bad uh or distracting, but it just felt like it was from a different like
Movie.
object. Like the main mission of the movie just be completely detoured with this stuff.
Yeah, the plane crashing is like a very interesting choice because it really moves like Rory, who's played by Johnny Flynn, like his character forward. It's like, oh, I need to like join the British Air Force and take up the fight now, and that's kind of impending because I think shortly after or as the movie's ending, King George is signing the decree that
Yes.
everybody needs to
Yeah.
enlist. But like why that became like a major part of this story where like you had this very nice and I feel like pretty fascinating relationship between Ray Fiennes and Carrie Mulligan, this
Yeah.
widowed person who has a son and is also experiencing health complications of her own. Ray Fiennes is this archaeologist who never really got the credit he needed, or maybe deserved, and seems like he's not totally interested in his own marriage, and how they kind of are like finding purpose with each other in different ways. It was just
Yeah.
like you have a movie there. You don't need to add this C plot in.
Right.
I don't know. Just it felt weird, but I didn't hate it either. Like I was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is interesting.
I mean, I thought there was more meat on the bone with like the drama regarding the dig itself. Like originally, you have the local like Ipswich Museum trying to like step on Basil Brown and take over, and then once they realize it's of a great magnitude, this find, the British Museum, and like the government's sake, like basically like comes in, and then like there's like touches of like the guy from the British Museum's touches of like classist critique, and like he's like rubbing his raising his nose to
Hmm.
Brown in the process, and like they just kind of touch on it. It's all really subtle. I thought there's a lot more there. It's
Yeah,
like, and like they kind of just drop all that for the most part, and like Brown just kind of goes with the dig and gets to still oversee it, even though he's not really in charge. And then there's a few comments at that toast about where Mulligan's gonna give the stuff, and that's kind of it. Like again, there was more movie there, but
yeah,
like we got this romantic side plot, and like, and again, like it's not that I disliked it. I actually really like one of their touches where like they don't do the deed when they first,
hmm,
embrace Johnny Flynn and Lily James. They don't. And I'm like, oh fuck. And now he's gonna go to war and they're not gonna consummate. Oh no. I like this. But then
yep,
nah, they get it on before he
yeah.
goes.
Outside in like a dilapidated old building, just like
Yeah.
damn,
I mean,
really.
like it was like a really nice sunset. Like that was actually like romantic as fuck, not gonna
Oh,
lie.
it was.
And I guess it's paid off in a sense because they make you wait for it.
Hmm.
But it was just a strange choice, like I believe this movie is based off a book about the dig,
Hmm.
and but I have to imagine this was some of that dramatic license because, like you
For
said,
sure.
the Peggy character uh is that wait is Peggy who's Peggy? Yeah,
Peggy is Lily James.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The Peggy character, as you said, is like an accomplished
yeah,
person who's qualified to be there, not just kind of like this greenhorned
hmm,
wife of a fellow excavator. Like, so there were some choices made there, but
for sure.
dig
You know,
still pretty good.
it was funny when the British Museum guy came in. He's like, we're just gonna claim this for ourselves, and I was like, oh, that's a very British museum. Like this is definitely quite accurate to frame them in this way.
Yeah.
Although apparently also a creative license, which I'm not sure why. They cast Ken Stott as Charles Phillips from the British Museum, and Ken Stott's like in his 60s, but Charles Phillips in this whole thing was like 35 years old. He was very
That's
young,
funny.
so
Yeah.
interesting like how they kind of like put people in those roles
Well,
for.
the biggest one would be Carrie Mulligan was not the first choice to
Yes.
play the widow, of course.
Who was that, Dave?
Nicole Kidman.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, apparently in real life, the widow is older than Basil Brown. And yet now we totally flip it like Hollywood's want to do. And Carrie Mulligan's what, 30 years, 25 years younger than Ray Fiennes? However old Ray Fiennes is. I don't know.
Yeah, let's
Like
see.
Carrie Mulligan's in her early 30s. Definitely a little younger than Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, 30 years between them.
Right.
Yikes. Yeah, I guess like this is a movie I would definitely recommend. I think it's really well shot. I think there's a lot of like interesting stuff going on. I think kind of going back to like what were they trying to say with a lot of it. I think they're trying to say a lot, and I think that detracts a little bit from the movie. Like we've kind of harped on. They make some interesting choices with the direction of the movie at points, but
Mhm.
overall, like if you enjoy this time period, or just like history at all, I think there's some really cool stuff and some good performances to anchor it as well.
Yeah. And Johnny Flynn, I think, is definitely convincing as like the dashing soldier to be slash romantic object
Mhm.
of interest. And if that interests you, if you thought that worked in the dig, he's also in Emma as the romantic interest to Anya Taylor Joy's Emma. So check that out. He's pretty good in that one as well. Um, Also, just want to shout out, I'm a big fan of the British Museum. It's a lovely place to visit when you can do that if you're ever in London.
Well, Dave, why don't we get to our last movie? Which I mean, this has been a long time coming, but Nostalgia goes to Sundance.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Park City, baby.
uh, you know, fortunately for us, Sundance was virtual this year, which allowed us to be able to get movie tickets to see Judas and the Black Messiah, a movie I think we both have been highly anticipating. The Shaka King movie. Who he's made a few movies, but nothing really high profile.
Rising talent for sure after this.
Yeah, and I think this is really going to put him on the map. You know, when you get Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield to be co-leads in a movie about Fred Hampton, uh, right there, the movie should sell. But Shaka King
Hmm.
has done interviews where he's like, "Yeah, only Warner Brothers gave me a decent like money pitch for this.
That's
Every other
absurd.
studio like pretty much undersold it. So
Right.
really disappointing. And especially as we start like Black History Month, but within the past year, the way that Black voices have been um, increasingly noticed and elevated, um, just very tone deaf. And obviously, this was pre-lit and funded before all probably the George Floyd thing happened, but still, just like to
Yeah.
not find this story to be
It's
profitable
being edited at that time.
is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Just to mention for everyone, this will be coming on HBO Max on Friday, February 12th. So 2 Fridays from now. And this is the third movie in their run of HBO Max releases where it's on the platform for 30 days or whatever, and then it'll just be in theaters. Obviously, Wonder Woman and the little things preceding it. But after Wonder Woman, this is definitely a big event movie for that HBO Max Warner Brothers push, and it's really great. So it's definitely deserving of the hype.
yeah, it's it's been compared at least in structure to the killing of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Oh, that's good.
Telling the story of this assassination from the vantage point of the traitor. Um,
Hmm.
Lakeith Stanfield in this movie, um, playing William O'Neill and Wild Bill O'Neill. This I don't know. I guess like car
Yeah,
thief
petty
and
criminal.
yeah, car thief in what they're in Chicago, and
Yes.
he gets basically used by Jesse Plemons's Roy Mitchell, but pretty much just like avatar for FBI agent in this
Hmm.
movie, as like a double agent to get close to Fred Hampton and provide information about Hampton's rise with the Black Panthers and his goings about. It's incredibly interesting, and I think just like that pitch right there is like enough to pull anybody in. But then you bring in Daniel Kaluuya in this role as Fred Hampton, who is just like at 100 the whole time. Like he's painting the black. He's just absolutely phenomenal in this film, and I feel like his presence is actually almost like too strong to the point where like when he's not on screen, I'm like, man, just get him back on screen. I just want to
Right.
see him some more. I heard you say it was really great. Tell me what you liked about the movie.
Yeah. Well, I think you know. Thinking about what Shaka King said about how they struggled to make this movie, I mean, the script is so strong. Like you said, they make you want so much more of Fred, right? Like he's largely sidelined when he's in jail for parts of the movie. And it's not just all those fire whipping speeches that he
Yeah.
gives. And the pace is really immaculate for that. And, when you get those moments where, it's Fred Hampton out in public showing how great of an orator he was, a leader of people, a gatherer of group, um, it like calling things electric in film is cliche, but it's like really like that crackling stuff.
Mhm.
And as the movie was going, I just started feeling like shit. I was like, this is so fucking sad, you know,
Mhm.
and like thematically throughout, because of how what Fred is talking about, especially in like those more private conversations where Kaluuya is more restrained yet still really charismatic. I think like thematically you get to a similar place that a lot of other recent movies have gone to. Like historically speaking, this movie is similar to Trial of Chicago 7, where of course
Mhm.
Fred Hampton makes a small appearance in that film because he's there supporting Bobby Seale, one of the founders of Black Panthers. But and that trial then is in fact referenced in Judas and the Black Messiah. But I think thematically the movie is actually more similar to Ma Rainey and One Night in Miami because
Mm.
it's so focused on Black independence and liberation and what tactics and ideas you should and should not pursue. And I think everything really nails, throughout this movie. It's so propulsive. And Shaka King in the Sundance intro, he's like, "Enjoy the movie. It's not the happiest thing, Like I actually really appreciate how he's like, yeah, this
Mhm.
shit like kind of sucks, but it's good to watch, you
Yeah,
know.
that was pretty cool to like hear from him at the beginning. Nice touch of Sundance. Um, I want to clarify before Roy Mitchell is an actual FBI agent who's been documented in this, but I
Yeah,
think
whatever.
just like the point is he's not the center of this.
Yeah, scum is still scum, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I almost feel like the way that he's painted in this is like too kind in some sense. Like he's obviously awful, but they're like, oh, maybe he wasn't totally
Or
racist.
right, and like what there's. I'm glad you brought that up. There's some moments where that is very over the top in Chicago 7, right?
Mhm.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt's prosecutor character is like annoyingly portrayed as he's a good man, even though
Mhm.
he's doing this bankrupt ass shit in terms of this trial. And like for Plemons, I actually think again the casting is perfect because he's
Yeah.
doing a lot of what he did when he made his name. Well, I guess he made his name in Friday Night Lights, but when he like burst out more dramatically with as Todd on Breaking Bad, right, where
Mhm.
it's like this is a two-faced person,
Yep.
and you really believe in both of those faces, and you don't know which way to take it with him, right? Like
Mhm.
Clemens is so great for that, and playing this FBI agent who's able to really twist Keith Stanfield's character and like really like convince him. And, like, you believe that Plemons' character thinks the Black Panthers are just as bad as Ku Klux Klan, and he's like,
Mhm.
oh, well, he doesn't like the Ku Klux Klan either. He can't be racist. But like then you listen more, like you see that. But as you say, we get some scenes with J. Edgar Hoover, played by Martin
Mhm.
Sheen, and Hoover is just basically full tilt as like, yeah, like I have racist personal beliefs about Black people, but more importantly, the policies of the FBI are to target and repress them. And Plemons like raises an eyebrow when he's hearing that like to his
Mhm.
face, and you're like, huh. It's kind of interesting, I guess, to see that gray area where like you have differences of opinions between various racist people.
Mhm.
Like I actually really appreciate those scenes, and I don't think it actually ends up like making him sympathetic at all. It would have been
Yeah,
a huge mistake if it did.
yeah. I think in some ways it kind of leads you to be like, oh, maybe Roy Mitchell isn't that bad, but I think in the end you kind of just understand that these are awful people. I thought it was a really interesting and like affecting choice to have Martin Sheen play J. Edgar Hoover and this like over like and potentially this isn't overly like bombastic, but like really like uh
In the
as you
open.
mentioned, yeah, just like cruel person who's just like he's walking around kind of like a general like Patton almost in at the beginning of the movie, and he's like in front of this thing like you need to like find these people and kill them, take them off the street, do whatever you can. Like
Right.
the black people should not be rising to power, pretty much what he's saying. And Martin Sheen, known for being, America's president in the West Wing,
Yeah.
probably, the people that liberals during Donald Trump were just like, oh, I wish I'm forgetting what his name is, president, whatever, in
Oh,
the West
okay.
Wing.
Yeah, yeah.
They were like, oh, I wish he was our president. Like, and then you have him playing this really awful character. And man, I have to admit, I was even like, yeah, damn, Martin Sheen, what are you doing here, dude? But
Bartlett.
yeah, Bartlett, thank you. But I thought that was a really great choice. I wanted to ask, like Lakeith in this movie is going against someone who's maybe giving the performance of their career. How did you feel about his performance and a little bit less of a showy role?
Definitely less showy, but more scenes, right? Like, he is
Mhm.
the actual lead. Like Kaluuya's gonna get run in best supporting. Uh I also think this is the role of Lakeith's career because this has
Mhm.
been a long time coming for him as being a leading man in like a capital D dramatic film.
Yeah.
Like obviously we love him on Atlanta,
Mhm.
and then he's really good in Sorry to Bother You, another leading performance. But I feel like this kind of levels up for me even again after Sorry to Bother You for him, because it's a layered character, right? And like you get those real life clips of that documentary that O'Neill gave in that interview, right? Where trying to understand this person as like, and you touch on the beginning too when he meets Clemens. It's like O'Neill didn't actually feel all that bad when Malcolm X and Dr. King died. Like, yeah, he felt a little
Mhm.
something, but you can tell he's not someone who cared about civil rights, even
Mhm.
though it was certainly in his interest to do so in the 1960s, right?
Yep.
And I think O'Neill in Stanfield's performance does such a good job of conveying how much of like a cowardly snake he really was. But like the movie title, like Judas and the Black Messiah, the movie was originally called Jesus Was My Homeboy or something along those lines. But like it does such a great job of making him feel like a Judas because you're seeing it through his perspective, as you said, Robert Ford. It's
Yeah.
like, and I think Stanfield, just the way he's able to convey like that shiftiness, and like it's convincing that he got away with it as a mole, right? Like you believe in, like, I think some of those scenes where like he like when there's that violent confrontation at the headquarters and he like sneaks
Mhm.
out the back, and it's like, and then yeah, I think he's tremendous. And how did you feel when he was like really like uh sad about drugging Fred, knowing what was going to happen? Like, yes, he was tears in his eyes, just shooken up, but he was still doing it. Like, how'd you feel about that? Like, the O'Neill character at that time?
Yeah, I found O'Neill just really like reprehensible. I think that comes across in the movie as like this person who really seemed to like only be out for himself. And I think that's like why this movie works so well. Is it's this juxtaposition about this person who was like all about community, all about how do we make this a more fair and equal society for everybody. Whereas O'Neill is just like, yeah, I'm doing this for me. And like, I think it obviously being as close to Fred as O'Neill was all the time, he obviously saw the good he was doing. And you even saw like the credit O'Neill got when they like rebuilt the Panther headquarters and how much work he put into it. So I think there was probably some I actually really liked that scene because I think it really displayed the characters grapple with like moving towards something that was giving him actual purpose and being stuck in this cycle of constant like trying to like push himself forward despite how it might affect other people. And this is like that example to the 100th degree. um I thought that was pretty good, but how did you feel about it? 'Cause it seems like maybe you weren't totally
No,
buying
no,
it.
I liked it. I
Yeah.
think they do their homework. They show their work with getting O'Neill to that point, and that's why again I think the script is really strong. Where like it serves both characters for the movie, O'Neill and Hampton. Um, and like you said, I've Kaluuya. Obviously, this is the first time he's been able to chew on all this, so much stuff, right? Like he was really good in Get Out, Oscar nominated for Get Out, but it's a different kind of acting chops when you're being a historical figure and you get to have those or
Mhm.
oratorical scenes,
Yeah.
and God, he is so so good in this, and really again like the screenplay and the two performances really hits home with how tragic this story is, and something that I think is under remarked upon in like when you learn about civil rights history and stuff. The murder of Fred Hampton is a footnote, if anything, when you're learning about this stuff, and for the average person, but like civil rights movement didn't stop after Dr. King and Malcolm X died. Like there was more casualties along the way, and this is one of the most tragic ones in that mix, given just how despicable the FBI activity regarding the Panthers were. And, I think a lot of people have a negative perception of the Black Panthers, especially their later part of the history certainly warrants that more. But like the early stuff, I think this movie does a good job of showing that they weren't just like National Guard people, but they were like really humanitarian.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of like Kaluuya scenes, besides the speeches, I actually really liked that like getting the gang together moment where
Mhm.
he like goes to that other Chicago gang, the Crowns, and he goes to see the poor white people, like, he gets all the groups and the Latinos as well, right? And it's like you understand like just how inspirational and effective he was as a leader and organizer because of that performance from Kaluuya.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say or ask, like, out of all like the big speech scenes, because Kaluuya gets a bunch of them in this as Hampton.
Mhm.
Um, was there one that you particularly liked or that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, the second one definitely, I think was is like really emotional scene because like the tragedy and the gravity of what's about to come is like really evident in the film at that point. So like that one like really kind of fucked me up. But I like the scene where he goes to the crowns and the crowns are like all like strapped up, being all intimidating. He's talking to their leader, played by Chris Davis, who's Tracy from Atlanta,
Hmm.
and then it's like, oh wow, this is really good. And then when they pay that back in that second big speech, and you see Chris Davis with that amazing fro, and he's just like nodding his head, throwing up his fist. I was like, oh man, they paid everything off so good in
Yep.
this.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. I also really liked when he went to I forgot what the name of it was, but the group of white people who had the
Confederate flag.
Confederate flag behind them, only because I felt like that really demonstrated like the command that Hampton had in that moment and the way he was like able to be disarming with like his charm, but also
Hmm.
be like this incredibly inspiring and powerful presence, because he's in one moment like soothing his own people's anger and frustration and seeing this symbol of hate that's like up on the stage, but also like connecting with these people and talking about why the way that police and the government treat lower people or people who are considered lower within society to them, um, and getting them on board with this movement was just so like amazing to see, and it's just so convincing. The performance just, it feels like Kaluuya has to be top of the best supporting actor list for sure after seeing this.
Yeah, I think he's definitely getting nominated. And a late entry, a benefit of
Mhm.
the late debut due to this extended Oscar eligibility window. Yeah, it's probably going to go down to him and Sacha Baron Cohen by the sound of it, and maybe Leslie Odom's in that mix too. And it's kind of interesting to see a trio of movies about the 1960s with similar themes all kind of coalescing
Yeah.
um, at the same Oscars. So when we've remarked upon Plemons, Kaluuya, and Stanfield, I just want to mention some of the supporting cast, which I also thought are really well done. I mentioned Chris Davis. Laurel Howery has a kind of, one scene as a fellow informant or whatever, or FBI person. Then you also have Ashton Sanders from Moonlight. You have Algie Smith from Euphoria. Dominique Thorne, one of the sisters in Beale Street. Like, I think there's some really nice casting in here. But Dominique Fishback
I
probably
was
is the one
gonna
that stands
say.
out the most, of course, who we've been a fan of ever since The Deuce, and
Mhm.
she's really good. In this, I think not only does it give another side to Fred Hampton, which I think is a benefit of the screenplay and necessary to really like fully color in who he was as a person, but
Mhm.
it's also serving her character in the process as well. It's not just the girlfriend.
Yeah, I was gonna say we haven't really talked about her much, but playing Deborah Johnson in this, I think she exudes like an intelligence and a presence, and I really like how they frame the interaction, like the first couple interactions she has with Fred, and pretty much every interaction with like her always kind of expanding and challenging his mindset to grow and open up and to see himself differently, even from that first speech he gives to I forgot, it was like a group of community people, and she's like, you're actually a poet, and like kind of like framing him in that sense, and like kind of like the light bulb that went off for him after that. I just was like, oh, this is really cool that they're not just making her like the the better woman behind the man out in front, but like
Hmm.
this like partner in terms of like helping him see and understand his perspective. I thought was really well done. So um yeah, really impressive from Shaka King. Seems like he's uh, destined to be making a lot of these movies, and hopefully, and I, from everything I've read in interviews with him, seems like he's interested in continuing to tell Black stories, which I think is really awesome as well. And I'm sure he'll get a lot more funding after this, so going to be seeing some cool stuff from him.
Yeah,
Any last
definitely.
thoughts?
Uh,
Check out
Friday the
Sundance.
12th. Check it out. Thank you, Sundance, for the early hookup, though.
Absolutely. That does it for us this week. What do we got next week, Dave?
Yeah, so next week we can talk about the weekend's performance at the Super Bowl halftime show, which is normal length. Anything about a longer show is fake news, actually. Uh, Additionally, speaking of black excellence, we're going to get two more amazing performers on Netflix and Malcolm and Marie, John Day Washington and Zendaya, the Sam Levinson film. Very excited to talk about that. And new music from the Foo Fighters and Slow Tie. And also a Studio Ghibli movie is coming to HBO Max, Earwig and the Witch, directed by Goro Miyazaki, the son of Hayao Miyazaki. So good list for next week.
Check it out. We'll see you next week.